What's up everybody? In this video we're going to take a look at SUNSAMA, which is a tool that can help you manage your time. Now I am actually obsessed with digital organization and making sure I'm aware of all my tasks, obligations, projects, you name it. I write it all down. However, I'm not much of a planner actually. Maybe that's because I'm now in the luxurious position where I don't have as many meetings as I used to when I was in the corporate world working in sales. And I was really pressed for time. I have more control over my time now, and I make an effort to minimize the number of meetings that I have down to the bare essentials. That's why I've found great success in just working from the lists that I have, which do have some other conditions like their context or energy level, but not as much grounding them at a specific time of the day. Sure, things have due dates or start dates based on when they can be started in the first place. I do think about it, but I don't plan it as much as a tool like SUNSAMA allows me to do. So it's also a way to kind of escape my comfort zone here, play around with a tool like this, and hopefully you'll learn something alongside me here. And you can decide whether you want to use this tool for yourself. Use the link in the description to create an account, and then let's get started. Now when you get started with SUNSAMA, your first experience may weird you out a little bit. At least that's what it did for me. Because when you start a trial, you will get a few questions. First, how much of your time is spent in meetings or calls? From 1 or 2 a week all the way up to most of the day. And it weirded me out because I think, well, what if you have 0? I think most of us probably don't, but it's still kind of forcing you into making a choice that may not apply to you. And it got even funnier here, to me at least. How have you been feeling about work? I feel anxious. I'm often distracted, I don't have time to do everything, I feel like I have a lot coming at me from different places, can't find enough time, rarely end the workday feeling satisfied, or I'm overworked and worried about burnout. It's like asking you, how miserable are you? Choose as many as you'd like though. And there's no option that asks me, hey, I'm doing fine and I want to improve my setup even more. So I thought this was a very strange introduction to the tool. Is improving your daily productivity critical enough that you would consider paying for a better way for you to stay focused and prevent burnout? It will cost $20 a month after your 14-day trial, yes or no? Now, again, I understand that from a kind of business perspective here, they want customers to go all in on the tool and really commit to it, get value out of it. But I think this wording is a bit harsh. How can I decide this when I haven't even tested it yet? The whole point of a trial is that I'll be able to figure it out. And then I'll make up my mind whether I want to do it. Now the good thing is, if you press yes, they're not going to ask for your credit card or anything. It's still a friction-free sign-up. But if you press no, they're actually not going to let you in, and you have to do the whole form all over again. Because they really force you to say yes if you even want to take a look at the tool. I thought that was funny. I thought that was strange. I hadn't seen that before. I get lead qualification and everything. I've worked in marketing. But I think this is not the best play here if you want to make a good first introduction with a user. Let's check out the settings first. We can go to the left top corner here and press Account Settings. You can set up your time zone alerts when your time zone changes. When does your week start? Count plan time as actual time. I turned this off. I think this is a matter of personal preference, but my gut feeling is that it's better to separate these two, and SUNSAMA allows you to do that. Often I find that estimated time differs from the actual time you spend on it, and there's a thing called Hofstadter's law, which is that everything takes longer than you expect it to, even if you take that law into account. In other words, the awareness of it doesn't fix it. That's why I would keep this off, but you can, for a more easy user experience, definitely turn it on, especially if you don't want to track this. For rollover position, meaning when they roll over from the previous day, where should they appear? I think top is the natural place for it, because it probably implies a higher urgency, but you can also add them to the bottom. You can enter focus mode after starting a timer automatically. You could do this manually, but I tested this out and I think it's a nice touch to just start the timer, which already implies I'm going to work on this, so might as well. Workload thresholds, how many hours per day do you prefer to work? I like this touch very much. It forces you to think about the time you spend on your work and when is the point of too much. You can select anywhere from 2 to 16 hours or set it up by the day, which is an extra nice touch if you feel like you have more energy on a Monday right after the weekend, for example. You could allow yourself more time than on other days. All of that is possible here. You can color calendar events if you have a calendar integration based on these two factors. Support is available via chat if you need it. A dark mode is present, which is always nice to see. Keyboard shortcuts, I personally don't use them much for most software that I use, but I know many people love them and they're there for easy navigation. When do you plan your day? This is really nice. I liked what they did here because this kind of implies a time in the morning perhaps, but actually all times of the day are available here in 15-minute intervals. And it even says if you change it to a time in the morning, such as 8:30 a.m., plan for today. But if you change the time to, for example, 8:30 in the evening, it says plan for tomorrow. And some of these other options at the bottom change as well as a result. So for now, we're on plan for today, assuming we plan our day in the morning. And then the next question is, when do you end your day? What is your shutdown time, basically? You can also set that up here. Automatically trigger the daily planning ritual once per day. We'll go over this and how this works in a moment. Automated daily shutdown, a prompt to shut down your day at the time above. I like this as a helpful reminder that when your time is up, it's up. On the other hand, you could argue if you're in a deep work session and you lose track of time, perhaps you wouldn't want a prompt to interrupt you and say, hey, well, actually, it's enough now. So again, this is very much contextual. If you have commitments that you want to meet regularly, you want to spend time with your family, for example, in the evening, despite potential deep work sessions, if that's more important to you, this might be helpful. Either way, you can turn it on or off automatically, which is a nice touch. It doesn't force you into one way of working with it. When do you plan for the week? Same story. You can select a day and a time. You can combine weekly review and weekly planning. Again, we'll go over those in a moment. I actually turned this on because this is what I do. When I do my weekly review, personally, I do it on a Sunday. I also take time to look at the week ahead. What kind of commitments, what kind of short-term desired outcomes have a certain due date, etc. Including weekends during reviews is also an option, which personally I do, even though I don't always work or complete tasks for my to-do list on the weekend. Still nice to see it's there. For time boxing, again, a feature we will also go over in this review. There's a default time that you can select from 15 all the way up to 60 minutes. If you park something in your calendar, you can have the default visibility also shown as busy or available. Privacy level, same story. In other words, can others see what you've put on your calendar if you share your calendar? You can import calendar events to SUNSAMA as well. It's a two-way integration, both towards the calendar as well as pulling from the calendar, which is a nice touch. These next two features, auto-scheduling gap and auto-scheduling hours, are two features that I am not comfortable with, which is not to say they aren't useful. I'm literally saying they're out of my comfort zone because I am a bit of a control freak, so I like manually scheduling any commitments that I have with others or with myself in terms of a task that I want to work on at a certain time. So having this option here of what times of the day SUNSAMA can auto-schedule tasks for me, that makes me a bit weary, especially considering there doesn't seem to be a way not to do this. It just confuses me a bit. I guess I could do something like 12 p.m. to 12 p.m. here to kind of turn it off. But either way, I wish you could turn this off. Although, again, it's just a personal preference. If you do prefer this, it's great that they do have an auto-scheduling gap, meaning they don't expect you to work like a robot from task to task without any breathing room, to take a sip of water, take a little walk, whatever you need to do. That's the time you can set up here. I recommend turning on this update prompt for importing or completing tasks. For notifications, I always say personal preference, use what you prefer. We have Annie the Architect as the profile here, and there are some miscellaneous account settings here. And that concludes the account settings. Now, there are a few other settings that we can go into though, and those are the workspace settings. And from here you can do various things, including your integrations. I think you will get a good use out of these if you have any of these, such as the Google Calendar, Outlook Calendar, Gmail, Outlook Email. It really focuses in on those two, but also things like Slack, Asana, Trello, Todoist, and a few other tools, which is a really nice touch. I played around with the Todoist integration, for example. It does seem to work in pulling tasks from there to manage them, to time box them into this tool. And the same goes for the Google Calendar. You can either pull events from it or put events on the calendar from SUNSAMA. It's a very seamless integration. And the same is true for Gmail. In fact, it even kind of replaces your inbox in a way, in that you can actually archive emails, delete emails from SUNSAMA, and they will also follow that inside of Gmail. So you are giving them a lot of power to your email inbox. It's up to you to decide whether you're comfortable with that. For this review, I'm turning them all off. We're really looking at the bare bones integrationless software, but know that this is available and you can just turn it on and get an even more full experience. Scrolling down a bit, you can add others to this workspace. Not relevant for this tutorial because we're using it as an individual. Still nice to see. Privacy settings, if you collaborate with others, that's helpful. What I also like is the ability to email forward a task to either today or to the backlog. In other words, tasks that don't have a start or due date assigned to them yet. You can save this email in your contacts and easily forward them to appear in SUNSAMA. Renaming the workspace and deleting them is also an option from here. Okay, we are looking at the calendar here. We have 5 days ahead of us, but we don't have any tasks on there yet. Let's change that by going to what's called the daily planning ritual. Again, we click on the top left menu here, and we can click it from here or just press P on your keyboard. What do you want to get done today? Add a task you want to work on today. Pretty straightforward. On this section, we have the today column, so we can add a task here manually, for example. What could the architect do? Buy wood. Let's just add that here for now. And he also has a few other tasks already in our system though. They just haven't been assigned a date yet. So let's change that as well. We can go to the backlog here. And you can see that there's a couple of tasks here that have already been put in there predefined. Now, aside from being an architect, Annie's also a member of a tennis club. So perhaps she's a member who has these cleaning duties in the clubhouse. That's why the channel is clubhouse. When we're in the clubhouse, we can perform this task. Otherwise, we can't. That's why it's indicated as such with a channel. And you can change it here. I've already predefined a few, and they're grouped by the area of focus that Annie has in her life. Now, obviously, you'll probably have more than just two. But for example's sake, we have these contexts that are grouped under the related area of focus. So for tennis club, it's the tennis club's clubhouse. That's what we select. If we press manage channels here, we can create context. Now I know that's a bit confusing because if you're a GTDer like me, that means the condition within which a task can be performed, like people, place, or tool. In this case, actually, we're just reinterpreting this as area of focus, and the channel is actually used to indicate the context. That's at least what I did. So under these areas of focus, you can change the name of them, you can color them, and save them if you're happy with what you've done. Then add channels to it, same story, name and color, and then create. Back to this task though, let's say that this is something we need to do today. What we can do is just drag it into here. Move to April 21. Let's also say that this is a task we need to do regularly. What about doing this every single Thursday? Well, what you can do is actually set up repetitions. I've already done it here. So under this menu, you can set up repetitions. In this case, I did weekly. You can also align it with an objective. Now, that's something I won't be doing here for this task, but there is a task which does have that, which is finish initial sketch. Same story. Let's pretend we need to do this today. And here you see something called finish house design. that already implies this is something related to her work as an architect. And that's even more obvious when we look at the context, which is drawing boards under the architect area of focus. Finish house design is an objective which I reinterpreted as a multi-step outcome that you want to achieve at any given time. For this objective, we said we want to complete this project by this week, finish house design. This is a task that belongs to it. So what you can do is click here and either unassign it if you want to, or if you go here to the menu, you can align with objective, select it, and there you go. So you can do that with any task. Let's go back to the backlog. We have a couple more. Let's say that on this day, Annie also has a match, a tennis match. So she needs to get her rackets. Where does she need to get them from? From the equipment room in the tennis club again. So that's kind of how you can work with this. Write building plan, whatever that means. I'm not an architect, so I am obviously oversimplifying an architect's job here. But we could say that this too is part of that objective. So we press R, select finish house design, and now we have two tasks related to this one outcome that we want to complete today. What we can also do is schedule time for it. Obviously with time boxing, that's important. So here we can select planned time from 5 minutes all the way up to 8 hours for a single task. We can also add notes to these tasks. As you can see here, I went a bit wild to show that they can have markup as well. It's a bit tricky to get it to show up, but here we go. Underline it, do whatever you want with it. Cool, so we moved that there as well. Now we have Visit Architecture Museum in Tokyo. If we have a tennis match at our local clubhouse today, it's unlikely that we'll make our way to Tokyo, right? So this can stay in the backlog for now. What we do need to do though is check if any items have due dates aside from start dates. So let's make sure this is all looking good before we complete this ritual. We can see that the start date is set to today, but the due date isn't known yet. Let's say that we need to finish this by Friday latest. So we start today and it's due tomorrow. And the same goes for the building plan, because the objective is also due tomorrow. Just to double check whether that's also set up properly. Start this week. Weekly objective. Right, so this is automatically already assuming that it's due this week. And you can see that the total time allotted to this project is also automatically registered. We have finish initial sketch, which we first said would take 5 minutes. Let's change that to 30. And then we have write building plan, which is 3 hours. And if we look at this, it says 3 hours, 30 minutes in total. So a really cool way to look back on your projects as well. Look at the current ones, see where is your time going. All right, and then we're done. Now, if you have a task manager, it would show up here and you can pull tasks from in there. Same goes for your calendar. I disconnected it this time, but you can also move it back and forth from here. And if you have an archive, you could see items in here too. Now, importantly, I recommend turning off auto archive. This is just the control freak of me again, but I don't want to risk losing a task. I get the intention of decluttering your day if tasks keep being uncompleted, but I want to be at the driver's seat here. But if you have more trust, more faith in a system like this, then you can absolutely enable auto archiving as well. Now let's close and see what it looks like. And we can see that these tasks are now assigned to today. And here we see the total amount of time estimated for today. But we can also see that not every task has time assigned to it yet. So let's pretend that cleaning the tables here will take us 2 hours. And buying wood, and I'm going to ignore the context for now, will take us 3 hours. And here you can see that this total time for the day changed color. Because if you remember in our settings, we assigned to us a workload threshold of 6 hours. But now we're on 8 hours and 30 minutes. So that is how it warns you. Hey, you're doing too much here. Slow down. Maybe reassign a task or reschedule a task to tomorrow, right? So if I change this to here, it's no longer red. It's no longer warning me. And I think that's a really nice touch. Cool. So let's now pretend that we've completed these tasks for today. We can mark them complete. They become a bit less visible. The progress bar moves on. I can imagine this is really motivating to see if you work in this way. Now it's time for the daily shutdown ritual. Finish today. It automatically shows you. how you spent your time in total time, it says 0 minutes. And that's because we made this distinction in the settings, if you remember, between planned time and actual time. So if we change this actual to 30, for example, here, we can start to see it show up. Let's say cleaning the tables, we planned 2 hours, it took only 1. Writing the building plan took 2.5. And finishing the initial sketch actually took 3 hours. So we can see here that this threshold that we set up for 6 hours has been exceeded by 1 hour in total based on that actual time. Now, if your planned time and actual time are the same in your settings, this will be auto-filled, but it might be less accurate. So think about that as you review the day. Next up, the daily shutdown ritual. Write a brief reflection on how the day went. What got done today? What did I learn? How am I feeling? Etc. And if you're on a team, you can share this right up in Slack, and that is also automated if you have the Slack integration. Right? You can wrap up, so just, it was a good day. Obviously, I'm not answering all these questions, but it's like a journal that you can keep for yourself digitally. Wrap up, done for the day. Close. I think that's a nice touch, a nice way to really consciously be doing a shutdown. This is something that Cal Newport also mentions in his book, Deep Work. It's important to actually have a ritual, and he even talks about shutting down his laptop and saying shutdown complete out loud, as geeky as that sounds. It really works to get your brain working in a different direction, to enter rest mode instead of, oh, I'm just going to check that email one more time, or, I feel a bit of energy, let's do this one more task. That's going to kill you in the long run. So I like how SUNSAMA is aware of that. I can imagine how this is a tool that definitely promotes mental health. Now let's look at the weekly review. What you can see here is that the weekly objective is still present as unchecked. Time spent on objective is marked. And what we can do here is open it and mark it complete if we assume that it's the end of the week now and we finished the house design. We can check out the stats on our daily productivity, logged 4 hours this week in total, here by context, which I think a really cool touch. I've never seen another tool do this before so easily, so intuitively. And this helps you also to define, hey, what are my most prevalent contexts in terms of time? Where do I perhaps need to spend more time? Where do I perhaps need to spend less time for a better balance in my life? Now we go to next week to plan it. We can add an objective here. Once we've entered that objective, we can also mark it up a bit nicer, add more talking points here. If you want to share it with teammates on Slack, we can do that here too. This really facilitates accountability. Now we are done, quote unquote. Now, if you want to work from context in a bit more detail, I can imagine that your to-do list may be a bit longer than this. I'm going to just pretend that all of this is now undone again. You can press a specific channel, as it's called here, and you will see only tasks that belong to that channel, which I think is really great to see. It's like an easy automatic filter so that you can only see what you can do now anyways, right? If you're currently with your drawing board, you cannot do anything in the tennis clubhouse, so no point in seeing that there. I like how it facilitates that. On the right-hand side here, you can open up a couple of integrations if you have them, like Google Calendar. You can view your objectives for the week. You can also scroll with them, and the calendar moves along, which is a great touch. You can see your backlog, in other words, tasks that you haven't yet processed that are just sitting there to potentially be done in the future. These are also taking into account the filter that you have on the left here, so be careful with that. You might miss some stuff. I just put it back to all now, and we see that visits to Tokyo again on the backlog here. We can see the archive from here. We can search for anything from here. Works well. And you can get updates from the tool here to stay on top of things, as well as adding new integrations. So if you had Todoist or Trello, I recognize Asana here, Notion, Gmail, etc., that would also be present here for an easy integrated experience. Back to the left here, keyboard shortcuts are present for all kinds of things, which is a cool touch. If you want to become a power user, you can do so very easily. And it even includes certain commands for your integrations, like show Todoist is up and the That's really well done. All in all, a really interesting experience to see how this tool supports you in managing and blocking your time. Now, I do block my time sometimes, but it's based on context. And then I navigate to my task list within that context to see what I need to do. Whereas this tool really puts the tasks at the center stage and then assigns time to it. So it's really a different approach. It was good to get out of my comfort zone, and I hope that you also feel inspired to try it out if you liked it. Again, use the link in the description to do so. Keep suggesting tools to me because I got this tool on my radar thanks to some of your comments. So let me know what you think. Leave any questions in the comments, and then I'll see you in the next video.